Tonight, Israel begins ground operations in Lebanon and flights suspended in Dubai following strikes by Iran, as motorists are urged to stop panic buying fuel despite the oil crisis deepening. Good evening and welcome to ABC News Victoria. I'm Alexandra Alvaro. Also tonight, an admission of omission. The Sydney Swans take the fall for removing Jewish references from a tribute to victims of the Bondi terror attack. A $125 million settlement over the COVID hotel quarantine program. And the black comedy thriller that won one Oscar after another. Israel has announced it's begun what it's calling a limited ground operation against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. It comes as Iran rejected Donald Trump's claim that the regime is ready to negotiate an end to the conflict, and flights were again temporarily suspended out of Dubai.
Flames near the tarmac. A drone hitting a fuel tank at Dubai's airport, forcing flights to be suspended yet again. The attack followed another round of US and Israeli airstrikes against Iran. These residents returning to their Tehran home several days after it was hit to find there's little left.
Here on the floor below we had one child, a 1-month-old. Thank God he was able to get out safely.
Another woman in the capital told the ABC she's still hopeful the country's leadership will be toppled. But she says the communications blackout imposed by the regime has worsened.
We feel trapped like hostages. It's as if this regime is taking everything from us.
The US president claims Iran has largely been defeated, but says he's not yet prepared to end the war.
They want to negotiate. They want to negotiate badly. I don't think they're ready.
We have never asked even for negotiation. We are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes.
Donald Trump is demanding other nations help protect oil tankers from Iranian threats in the Strait of Hormuz, pointing specifically to China and warning NATO countries they'd face a very bad future if they don't step in. The Australian government says it's not been asked to get involved and doesn't plan on doing so. Iran has fired hundreds of missiles at Israel since the conflict began. The Israeli foreign minister denying reports that his country is running low on interceptors that defend against them. As Benjamin Netanyahu mocked rumours of his own death following online speculation that recent footage of the Prime Minister was AI generated.
We are doing things striking Iran very hard, even on this day. In Lebanon as well, we continue.
Hours later, the Israeli military announced it had started what it's calling limited and targeted ground operations against Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. Israel's assault against the Iranian-backed group is estimated to have displaced more than 800,000 people. With shelters full and storms setting in, this family of 7 is taking cover in a truck.
We're putting tarp over it because we're soaked with water. I just want shelter for me and the children.
Trying to protect the youngest victims of war. Catherine Diss, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The federal government claims it did everything it could to help the Iranian women's football team after a 5th player withdrew her asylum claim. Campaigners say they fear for their safety when they get home, and the opposition has criticised the Home Affairs Minister for the publicity surrounding the story.
Atife Moradi knows the Iranian regime's playbook well. She played for her home country's national league before moving to Australia and says her every move was tightly controlled.
All the time they are telling you to keep your hijab on, roll your sleeves down, don't do makeup. They put pressure on you that you shouldn't do this, do that, or even...
Atife knows some of the players and is heartbroken a 5th woman has left Australia after withdrawing her claim for asylum. She claims they were pressured to change their minds by a team staff member who also left on the weekend. And she fears the 2 remaining players are also under pressure.
I have been for some time trying to get in touch with one of them, but they say that because they are under watch, I can't talk to them right now.
While the opposition's backed the offer of asylum, it's criticising the government's approach.
The government should have done everything it could not to make a massive song and dance about what had been achieved for and with these women.
It is, at the end of the day, their choice, and they have made a different choice, and we have to respect that as Australians.
International media with ties to Iranian expat communities are reporting that the players were coerced into returning to Iran and that they were played audio messages from families pleading that they go back. But government sources say there's no evidence that an individual in the team's staff was involved. But for many, the main concern is what happens now.
They could put them in jail and cancel all their matches, not allowing them to play football any longer.
Which would be the last thing any sports fan would want. Nasim Khadem, ABC News.
Experts say Australia should prepare for the possibility of a 1970s-style fuel rationing. With the war in the Middle East currently taking out 1 in 5 barrels, motorists are also being urged to stop panic buying because it's making shortages even worse.
Sky-high prices in Darwin, queues in country Victoria.
We're putting a truckload in, and by the time we turn around and go back, that load is gone the next day.
Even after the release of reserves to deal with the pressure on supply caused by the Iran conflict, we're vulnerable.
We've very much relied upon global fuel supplies and been a little bit complacent.
Australia imports about 90% of oil used in this country. The government says we have 29 days worth of jet fuel, 30 days worth of diesel and 37 days worth of petrol, which will go down when the emergency stockpile flows through to fuel companies. Experts say it's more like 20 days of jet fuel, 25 of diesel and 26 of petrol.
The OECD recommends about 90 days. New Zealand has around that, and we're obviously way off.
Now, a world market with 20% less fuel available because the Strait of Hormuz is effectively shut.
So we will have to adjust our fuel consumption and how we do things in this country.
There are no current plans to ration fuel.
They're doing their best endeavours. They've got cargoes coming. They've made some changes at the refinery. So look, the suppliers are doing everything they possibly can.
In the late 1970s, supply shortages and price spikes caused by another conflict in the Middle East led to rationing here. You could only fill up every second day.
Officially, today was for the even numbers.
A survey of dozens of Sydney stations revealed that only 1 in 4 was open for business.
At this stage, retailers aren't concerned about their future supplies. Any potential restrictions are going to come down to how long this conflict lasts, and that's a question no one in Australia can answer. Daniel Ziffer, ABC News.
The Royal Commission into Anti-Semitism has been asked to investigate the AFL after references to the Jewish community were taken out of a pre-game tribute to the victims of the Bondi terror attack. Sydney Swans Chief Executive Matthew Pavlich led the tribute to victims, referencing families, first responders and hero Ahmed Al-Ahmed, but the Jewish community wasn't mentioned. On the weekend, AFL Chief Executive Andrew Dillon said he didn't know why the script was changed. The Swans have since apologised and taken responsibility for removing all references to the Jewish community from the script. Victorian Senator James Paterson has asked the Commissioner to investigate the league.
If it's true that they were airbrushed out of the script, then that is just inexcusable.
We are very, very sorry that this issue has overshadowed what was a genuine attempt to show care and compassion towards the Jewish community and to honour those that lost their lives and all people impacted by the December 14 tragedy.
Victorian taxpayers will pick up the bill to compensate thousands of businesses who took a hit from the state's hotel quarantine bungle. The $125 million class action settlement brings years of legal dispute to an end as the government tries to avoid unwanted attention ahead of November's state election.
A city reduced to a ghost town. Melbourne's hospitality and retail scene emptied as the pandemic ran rampant through the community.
Governments did all they could around the world to make sure that they were protecting their communities from potentially large-scale death.
One of those measures was a hotel quarantine program riddled with alleged negligence that forced businesses to close their doors for months. Today, the state government settled a class action brought on by thousands of those retailers for $125 million.
It's certainly to prevent further protracted legal proceedings, which obviously come at significant cost.
This is taxpayer money at the end of the day, and once again, this is a government avoiding accountability.
The class action was taken out against the government and former ministers after the country's longest and deadliest lockdown between July and October 2020.
Having taken on the responsibility to operate hotel quarantine, they had a responsibility to do so reasonably competently, no more, no less, and that's what the lawsuit was about, because we contended that they'd not met that responsibility.
We've got to weigh and balance those important considerations and being, fiscally responsible within that context.
Well, I'm not sure this government knows what fiscal responsibility is.
While the settlement is still subject to approval from the courts, this drawn-out legal process brings the state government's fiscal management back into question as it seeks to avoid a high-profile trial in an election year. Costa Haritos, ABC News, Melbourne.
A long-awaited trial allowing some public transport passengers to travel without a myki has begun in Victoria. Melbourne's a step closer to joining other Australian cities that have tap-and-go technology, but it's off to a sluggish start, with the trial only available on select lines.
There's no ticket to ride on some Victorian train lines, and commuters are all on board.
It's so much easier to tap on with the phone.
This is a great idea and it should be rolled out on the other lines immediately.
Passengers on the Craigieburn, Upfield, Seymour and Ballarat lines can now tap on and off using a credit card, smartwatch or phone as part of a new trial. Though concession holders and anyone changing lines or switching onto a tram or bus will still need to use a myki card.
Desperately waiting to do that. I think I'd take the train more, tap on more on trams, etc.
The first morning of the trial saw few takers, with just 650 passengers tapping on using their credit cards and phones.
Look, I prefer the myki. I use the myki, so I'd rather just use the myki.
But if successful, the trial could lead to a broader rollout later this year.
If this public trial goes well, we'll then obviously look to expand that and switch on across the network progressively.
Melbourne's public transport ticketing system has long lagged behind the rest of Australia, with contactless payments available in almost every other capital city.
I didn't even know it existed because in Sydney we get to just tap on with our credit card.
It's often I've left my wallet or card and you can't buy a myki anywhere and you're just come on, it's 2026.
Sydney's had an operational tap-and-go system since 2017, and yet Victorians, Melburnians, are still waiting for an effective tap-and-go system on every single line.
The $1.7 billion upgrade to the state's ticketing system has been hit with multiple delays, and the government is still unable to say when tap-and-go technology will be rolled out across the entire network.
Much of our timeframes will be determined by the success of this trial. Early indications are good.
The trial will run until the end of April. Leanne Wong, ABC News, Melbourne.
WA Police have charged award-winning author Craig Silvey with 2 further child exploitation offences. Mr Silvey was already facing 2 counts of distributing and possessing child exploitation material. The 43-year-old is now charged with another count of possession, as well as a new charge of producing child exploitation material. The Jasper Jones author briefly appeared in the Fremantle Magistrates Court, where his strict bail conditions were continued. In a media release, WA Police said during their investigation of Mr Silvey, they'd also charged a 68-year-old woman with allegedly producing and distributing child exploitation material. Despite early warning signs of a harmful toxin, the South Australian government took months to update its public health advice on the state's devastating algal bloom. It's now been 1 year since the bloom began spreading along the coast, making it one of the nation's worst marine disasters. Four Corners' Angus Grigg reports.
It was one of the first signs of environmental catastrophe.
See, that's what a dead oyster looks like.
Steve Bowley's South Australian oyster operation was forced to close for 8 months last year because of a toxic algal bloom. His farm is back up and running, but the impacts of the bloom on marine life haven't gone away.
The environment here is broken.
It's because of a species of algae never seen before in Australia, which produces brevetoxins.
We've never had brevetoxins, so just our detection of brevetoxins is the trigger for a full investigation.
But it took the South Australian government 4 months from the discovery of the toxin in oysters to change its health advice for asthmatics.
One thing that's more important than speed is getting it right, particularly when we're talking about public health measures.
In Adelaide South, Kerry Sutton says she was successfully managing her chronic lung condition before the bloom.
Now, if I go outside and doesn't even have to be much of a breeze, the lungs are really tight.
The state government denies her symptoms are directly linked to the algal bloom and says they aren't consistent with the published literature.
You don't have any faith in the government, do you?
As experts predict climate disasters will become more frequent and intense, this algal bloom is a warning to the nation. Angus Grigg, ABC News.
Australians could face adverse health outcomes for decades following a regulator decision to delay a transition away from lead plumbing products. Businesses who invested in lead-free products say they're now commercially disadvantaged and are calling on the regulator to reverse its decision.
Norman Anderson has spent the last 3 years getting rid of any plumbing products containing more than 0.25% lead.
Overall, we've probably spent about $100K just in making the change, especially with a lot of man hours.
In 2023, the Australian Building Codes Board gave the industry until May this year to phase out the old pipes, which can contain between 4.5 and 6% lead. But in December, the goalposts were changed and the deadline was extended until 2028. Mr Anderson says it's a get-out-of-jail free card for big businesses who didn't prepare.
It's not fair at all. They've had time enough to get ready.
The Victorian government says it will stick with the original deadline of May this year, but experts say any delay could put Australia's drinking water at risk for decades.
Plumbing fittings that will stay in our buildings, our childcare centres, our aged care centres for 20, 30, 50 years.
Personally, I'd be very worried if I had lead plumbing products in my home. Lead can leach just very slowly into the water supply over many, many years.
New Zealand is enforcing the change from May this year. The UK, USA and Canada enforced a similar standard over a decade ago, and the EU is expected to implement even tighter restrictions from December.
The Australian Building Codes Board say its decision is final, made in light of a strong demand for more homes. But some traders are concerned there could be further delays, all in the name of bailing out big business.
If we get to May 2028 and the stock hasn't been used, will we delay again? You'd really hope not.
Feeling the heat after an unwanted delay. Charlotte Wilkes, ABC News, Ballarat.
Crowds turned out in the nation's capital today to greet the Danish monarchs as they continue their Australian tour. It was another busy day for King Frederick and Australian-born Queen Mary, who head to Melbourne tomorrow.
Rolling in royal fashion and greeted by hundreds at the Australian War Memorial.
She's an Australian icon, I think. I can't believe that we've got an Australian queen.
Pretty exciting. I mean, I've never met a royal, so first time.
The King and Queen pressed the flesh for the first time this royal tour.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
The chance to meet the royals.
Hi, George.
Attracting even the youngest of monarchists.
I said, hi, it's my 10th birthday. Can I please get a picture? And she said, oh, happy birthday. And of course you can get a picture.
This is the royal couple's first visit to Australia since becoming King and Queen of Denmark in 2024. Those getting to share a brief moment with them today will no doubt treasure the experience for many years to come.
I'm actually from Melbourne. I spontaneously Friday night decided to drive up yesterday. There may not be another state visit to Australia.
The pair laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. and left poppies for 2 airmen killed in action over Denmark during the Second World War. Then it was down to business at Parliament House. Last night they were guests of honour of the Governor-General, the King reflecting on meeting Tasmanian-born Mary during the Sydney 2000 Olympics.
Australia has held a very special place in my heart ever since I slipped into that bar.
Next stop on the tour, Melbourne, before a fairy tale homecoming in Queen Mary's native Hobart. Lily Knopfling, ABC News, Canberra.
Australian stars Rose Byrne and Jacob Elordi have walked away from the Academy Awards empty-handed. Action thriller One Battle After Another took home a swag of awards, including the prestigious Best Picture, while another favourite was snubbed entirely.
A red carpet awash with Aussies, familiar faces and some of Hollywood's freshest. The Academy Awards, an opportunity for La La Land to celebrate.
Not because we think all is well, but because we work and hope for better.
And make a statement or two.
No to war and free Palestine.
Brisbane's own Jacob Elordi was nominated for the first time, but he missed out to One Battle After Another's Sean Penn.
Sean Penn couldn't be here this evening, or didn't want to.
His work in Frankenstein, though, didn't go unnoticed, the film picking up 3 statues.
My mate Jacob Elordi, who sat for 400 hours in the makeup chair during filming.
It was then one Oscar after another.
One battle after another. One battle after another.
Sweeping 6 awards from 13 nominations, including Best Picture.
The Oscar goes to One Battle After Another.
And for the first time in the Academy's history, casting.
Cassandra Kulakunda.
Hamnet's Jessie Buckley beat Rose Byrne for lead actress.
This is...
While Sinners' Michael B. Jordan took home the gong for lead actor.
I stand here because of the people that came before me.
Sports drama Marty Supreme was snubbed, the team leaving empty-handed. K-pop Demon Hunters made history with its original song.
Growing up, people made fun of me liking K-pop, but now everyone's singing our song.
While some of the big screen's most beloved were memorialised in an emotional tribute.
What fun we had storming the castle.
A night appreciating the arts and the escape it provides. Melissa McKay, ABC News.
To finance now, and the local share market fell again today. Here's Alan Kohler.
The ASX All Ordinaries Index has fallen 6.8% since February the 27th, the day before the United States and Israel attacked Iran. So not yet a correction, which would be 10%. But it's probably fair to say that investors have their fingers poised over the sell button, with their eyes and ears glued to the Straits of Hormuz. Today's action was a bit like most days in the past couple of weeks. Energy stocks up, miners down, and today retailers caught a bid as well. But I think we can also say that investors are still pretty confident the war and the closure of the Persian Gulf won't last very long. This graph compares this energy shock with previous ones in terms of supply disrupted, not price. Last week, the International Energy Agency said this one is the worst in history. And this graph is what the IEA was talking about. But markets are not acting like it is. Also, this shutdown is about far more than oil and gas. It involves about half the seaborne trade in sulphur, more than 1/3 of the methanol, urea and fertiliser, and 1/5 of the phosphate and ammonia. But most of the attention is on energy, of course, and specifically fuel. Here's a graph of the average Australian petrol price and the oil price. Now, petrol is now higher than it was in 2022, but oil is not. So retail margins must have expanded since then. The Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee will reveal its decision on rates tomorrow at 2:30. The futures market is putting the chances of them going up at 68%, but the economist choir is singing the rate hike chorus. And one of them, Paul Bloxham of HSBC, said today that the economy will need a downturn to get rid of inflation. A recession? Time will tell, he said. The Aussie dollar crept a bit higher in anticipation of a rate hike. Global share markets mostly fell. And on commodity markets, West Texas oil is sitting just below $100. Gold and silver and copper fell. And that's finance.
To Sport now, and Sydney star Errol Goulden will miss most of the AFL season in a major blow to the Swans' premiership ambitions. The midfielder dislocated his shoulder during Saturday night's win over Brisbane. He'll have surgery this week and is set to be sidelined for about 4 months. Isaac Heaney suffered hamstring tightness, although the severity of the injury is unclear. Meanwhile, Collingwood is challenging a one-match ban handed to veteran Scott Pendlebury for this high bump on Adelaide's Josh Worrell. It's Pendlebury's first suspension in his 427-game career. The tribunal will sit tomorrow night. In Formula One, McLaren is desperately trying to work out what caused the mechanical disaster at the Shanghai Grand Prix. It's launched an investigation into 2 separate electrical faults that meant Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris failed to make it to the start line.
Oscar Piastri's season has gone from bad to horrible.
It just couldn't get any worse at the start of the season for Oscar Piastri.
This was meant to be a story of redemption for the Melburnian after he crashed before the start of his home Grand Prix. Now his 2026 title hopes are in tatters.
It was an electrical problem on the power unit, different to Lando's, so yeah, just very unfortunate.
McLaren is urgently seeking answers from engine supplier Mercedes as to how 2 separate issues stopped Piastri and Lando Norris from starting the race.
Of course, frustrating to come such a long way, put in a lot of effort, not just for me, but the whole team. And not even start a race.
It seems to be like an extremely unfortunate coincidence of 2 different problems on the electrical side of the power unit appearing at the same time.
I was surprised that there's 2 separate units bad enough that would stop 2 cars from running.
It's been a chaotic start to the new F1 era, driven by new cars and new regulations.
I don't think this will be the end of seeing failures for these power units.
But there's hope the current mayhem is just a temporary bump in the road.
As the season goes on, I expect these faults to get ironed out and for them to become less of a talking issue and for the excellent reliability that we're used to seeing Formula One cars operate with to return.
Piastri has another chance to start anew at the Japanese Grand Prix in 2 weeks. Tom Maddox, ABC News.
It's time for the weather now with Adam Morgan.
Yeah, Alex, it was hard to find much colour outside today on a grey and gloomy day. We've got another feed of tropical moisture extending down through central Australia, and that meant thick cloud across Victoria today with rain developing from the west and a few storms in the northeast as well. Now, compared to earlier this month, it was much lighter rain this time around, mostly just a few millimetres in the north so far today, but there has been more in the southwest with 13 at Aireys Inlet and 9 at Port Fairy. Beneath the cloud, temperatures barely moved in far western and central Victoria. From a low of 13, Warrnambool rose to just 16 degrees today, the coldest there since before Christmas. Up in Wodonga, though, a more normal temperature range, 16 to 31. Here in the city, we stayed steady as well. From an overnight low of 17, we reached only 19.7. It was humid too in light rain this afternoon. So far, there's just been enough to wet the ground. Briefly back to the satellite, where there's more rain through the red centre and monsoonal showers and storms up across the top end. This low out near the Solomon Islands should head Queensland's way this week. For us, rain moves into eastern Victoria overnight and then slowly clears later tomorrow. A cold front briefly clips Tasmania to our south, but after that, a high-pressure ridge settles through Bass Strait in the days ahead. That means light south to southeasterly winds and mostly settled conditions apart from the odd shower or storm in the north or the east. Tomorrow, though, cloudy but warm up in Sydney, 31 degrees. There's more storms in Alice Springs, and it's sunny again across in Perth and hot all week. 31 degrees, I think, rather there. Back home, scattered showers and rain areas contract east tomorrow and mostly clear by the evening. The northeast ranges have a risk of a thunderstorm. It's another mild day with grey skies, but hopefully a few very late sunny breaks. Temperatures are a little below average, are at 22 degrees, Horsham 25. A wet start in the northeast and east Gippsland tomorrow, but for South Gippsland, just a possible morning shower remaining. Wonthaggi's looking at a top of 21. Here across Melbourne, rain continues tonight with a light shower or two left tomorrow morning. We remain mostly cloudy in the afternoon. It's an optimistic high of 21 if we get some late sunny breaks. Better autumn weather lies ahead though after tomorrow. Partly cloudy on Wednesday and 23, cloudy 23 on Thursday, then up to 25 on Friday. Saturday milder, then lovely for Sunday, Monday, Alex.
Thanks, Adam, and that is it for this evening's bulletin. Good night.